All right, so for this episode of the First Hit podcast, we'll be talking Mets and Yankees baseball and Isles and Rangers hockey. Of course, this guy right here.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more.
The Braves suck. Fun.
All right, Yankees baseball. Jonathan, let me go from
All right.
Go.
All right. So I want to take a positive silver lining out of that game on Sunday. So yes, the Yankees bullpen blew it. Very, very bad loss. We know that. But Domingo Germán, 7 no-hit innings. That can't get forgotten in all this. If he can pitch like that consistently, the Yankees could have a strong frontline rotation. You have Garrett Cole. Jameson Taillon has pitched very well over the past month or so. Then you have Domingo Germán back. Those three, then you can assume if Corey Kluber can come back and he can pitch to the level he was before he got hurt, that's 4 really good starters. And then you can say, okay, maybe Luis Severino comes back. That's a 5th starter. And even if he doesn't come back, they have Jordan Montgomery, who was a perfect 5th starter. You don't want to put him at the 2nd spot, but he can more than hold his own at the 5th spot. So I think with all that in mind, the Yankees have a really, really, really strong rotation. So I think that's the silver lining you need to take into account.
I don't see any.
We have to cut that.
I don't see any benefits that outside of Vermont.
That's funny.
That's my thoughts. That's my thoughts. That's the Red Sox to the Yankees right now. Following up right behind you, and you think you have hope? No, we got you. There was nothing there.
Are we back on now?
You pitched well, right? That's fine. Yankees rotation still needs help.
Does it though?
I think so. I think they need one insurance starter, right? I think I could see them using that. And even if it's not, maybe they could use more bullpen help.
So I think they could use another bullpen guy as opposed to starters, which is shocking.
One long reliever type guy who can pitch 2-3 innings here and there, but also can be that 1 inning guy. That's swing role. They need a swing role.
Maybe they need a closer. I mean, look at that game. I know it's just one game, but who do they trust right now? So it's in a 1-run game. Who do you trust? I mean, it wasn't even a 1-run game. It was a 4-run lead.
Do you think there's anyone you could even trust in a 1-run game?
I think so. I think it's a bit of overreaction. I think Chapman's going to be fine. Loaiza had a really good year outside of Sunday. Chad Green's also consistent. I don't know if he's your closer, but he's your 1-inning stopper. He can do 2 innings, really. He's done it in the past. And Zach Britton, he hasn't been doing well, but he also was coming off the injured list, so you have to take that into consideration. And he's also a good fit for Yankee Stadium. He's a ground ball, sinker ball pitcher. So that's someone you want in your arsenal.
It's almost like the Colorado Rockies effect. You kind of need to have those guys.
Yeah, and that goes into a little bit of yesterday's trade. They just acquired a pitcher. They traded Hoy Park, who was pretty much that quadruple A guy. He wasn't quite good enough to make major league roster, but he's probably a little too good for AAA. And they got a reliever who pretty much fits the profile, the ground ball type guy. He has a 4.5 ERA. That's great. That's the Yankees. That's the situation right now. The Red Sox own them, unfortunately. But that's okay.
Yeah, it's sad. This guy?
I think the Yankees, they need to understand they're not going to catch the Red Sox. Their season right now is second wild card.
They have a small chance at Tampa. If Tampa doesn't play their cards perfectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's Tampa. They're going to play their cards perfectly. I mean, if any team knows how to run a baseball team, it's Tampa.
Yeah, they need to start thinking, okay, if we can make it to this wild card game, how are we going to beat the Rays in one game? So I think they need to start thinking ahead for that. Garrett Cole one game, I'll take my chances. Yeah. And then so they have to start looking at trade deadline fortifications. One guy they're linked to is obviously Trevor Story. What do you think about his fit on the Yankees?
He fits better than someone like Chris Bryant, right? The Yankees should not trade for someone like Chris Bryant.
No, that's
the cost will be too high, and it's not worth it because the risk of you still can not make the playoffs if you trade for Trevor Story.
Yeah, of course, there's no guarantee.
You could try to re-sign him, but also the cost won't be as high right now. I mean,
for trade for him?
Yeah, trade for Trevor Story versus Chris Bryant. The cost won't be as high for Story.
I feel like the Rockies are starting off, only accepting like high offers because I mean that's how you have to start. But I mean, I don't know how much they can really ask for. I mean, first of all, he's going to
What
be a
about
free
Javi
agent after this
Baez?
year. I don't think they're going to trade him. He's too inconsistent anyway.
He's also
It's my
too, but he's more of a culture player.
yeah. Well, I
That's
think they have someone like that with Ruben Odor already. He's kind of similar. He's very energetic.
kind of, but I think Baez offers a league changing. You know, I mean, he's a guy that everything he does that actually is production, especially, right? Like he's a guy that will somehow turn a ground ball to first base.
Yeah. Oh, that was Pirates.
Like, you know that
That's so exciting.
first baseman's playing in Korea, I think now.
Oh yeah, that's embarrassing for him. Doesn't know the rules.
Yeah, he left. He's like, I couldn't stay in America.
Too much for me. But I don't think Javi Baez is going to age well. I think he's really relying on the speed.
He's a speed player
Yeah,
who relies on flashiness,
and
almost like a worse Fernando Tatis.
yeah, exactly. Also, the strikeouts are ridiculous,
Well,
and he doesn't get on base. Yeah, but the thing is, those guys hit for like really high power. He's not that kind of guy.
Kind of tending for power. It's
But
not like
also, you got to take into account he doesn't get on base much outside of hitting the ball. He doesn't walk pretty much. The Yankees' big hitters, they pretty much all walk at a pretty above average level, if not high
that's
level.
someone like Joey Gallo would come in. He's a perfect 3-outcome hitter. On run, strike out, walk. That's all he does.
The thing is, I think the Rangers' asking price for Joey Gallo is going to be pretty high, especially given that he has one more year after this. Yes,
I can't see. I mean, no.
Where are you guys getting this from?
Online.
Yeah, but I think that they want to re-sign him first.
My background.
What?
You remember this guy? You remember this?
I do. I never hurt his shoulder too. That was funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
Oh, that was last year. Tough times, I think. But I think Gallo's going to go to the Padres. So I think the Yankees, they just need to focus on Trevor Story. I think also you got to take into account, like, what if Trevor Story just suddenly fixes himself? The Yankees have like an inside track to
Is he
re-signing
gonna
him.
fix himself moving to Yankee Stadium when he's not hitting at Coors Field?
I mean, maybe.
I mean, I get it.
know.
Maybe some of those deep fly ball outs will become homers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you have to argue, are those balls deep fly balls outside of Coors Field? Right?
I think it's worth.
What if he's just hitting pop-ups? I'm being serious. Like,
I think his lack of production this year, I think it's based off injuries. I
also,
think it's
a lot of guys haven't produced. I mean, let's be honest.
yeah, it's not just him. Yeah, I think it's worth the risk. I mean, I'm not expecting the prospect price to be anything exorbitant or anything. It'll probably be 2 mid-level prospects. I think it's worth a shot. I mean, the Yankees need to do anything right now, honestly, to try to spark this. I think you put him at short, you have Urshela at third, then you can move Gleyber to second, LeMahieu to first. Because I mean, when we look at Voit, we don't know when he's coming back, right? And he can DH too. And then you have Odor, he can rotationally come in.
Is Voit even worth depending on right now?
I don't think so, which is why I think they should go after Trevor Story, because Voit, first, he wasn't doing that well in the first place, like you kind of alluded to there. So I feel like they already have that kind of DH production, DH first baseman with Stanton. And if Voit does come back, they could put Stanton in left field. So I think that's the right move right now, Trevor Story, for sure.
Does Stanton play left field right now?
That's another question. They've been talking about it for a few weeks. Boone said he was going to put him out there.
It's almost like the Cespedes situation. Like, can he still field?
Yeah, I mean, he was a good fielder in Miami. You got to remember that. He was an above average fielder. That was 4 years ago.
I mean, that was. You have to think he might not have that anymore. Given he's been DHing consistently now, so I mean, there is a chance he can have that.
Last time he played the field was like maybe 3 years ago. That's a beautiful segue, Alessio. Let's talk about the Mets.
That's how I'm gonna do it. This
What
guy.
do you think?
I think. Well, my background says it all. He should be in that.
So you're the pro Chris Bryant.
Right now, as of 10 minutes ago, I am pro Chris Bryant because I realized that JD Davis, just put him in left field. He'll figure it out there, right? I know that hurts Donald Smith, but the Mets are in a weird situation right now where they don't have a true shortstop with Lindor out. So, you know what? Just BS that entire side of the infield and put Chris Bryant there to stabilize third base at least. Honestly, they need a bat more than they need a defense right now.
I agree. I think they should just go for it. I know some people are saying that they don't want to give up, certain prospects. Like, what are the Mets building for?
If you actually include JD Davis, it might be a closer trade than
Possible.
because the value that JD Davis replaces the Cubs' third base hole, right? For now, like a present deal.
Yeah, temporary.
And maybe even the Cubs would sign JD Davis for a slightly longer deal, not as long as the Mets will have to sign Chris Bryant for, but
yeah, it's not going to be anything crazy.
I mean, the Cubs still lose their franchise guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Chris
But
Bryant
I think they already know that they're going to lose him. He's going to walk in free agency.
He's gonna
So they're not
walk.
going to pay him.
Not
Yeah,
saying-
they know that. So they have to trade him pretty much.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, if the Mets have Lindor and Bryant for the next 10 years, let's say, hypothetically,
They should just go for it.
that is insane because these guys could actually, Chris Bryant more so than Lindor, is going to hold up as he ages, right? Lindor is more of a speed game. And Lindor has hit this year. It's not like he hasn't. He didn't hit early on. But after that point, he's been hitting fine. He hasn't been putting up those like near MVP numbers that you thought he could produce. But he also moved to Citi Field. That takes some time to adjust to.
Mm-hmm. And he was doing well before he got hurt. He was starting to pick it up a little bit.
Now,
Yeah,
Chris Bryant's already adjusted to National League pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, he plays great defense, right? And if you take out Arenado, he's probably a Gold Glover, by the way.
Mm-hmm. The time is now for the Mets.
Yeah, time's now.
No one's really challenging them in the NL East. They need to go for it now. The Braves are
pitching staff won't be
injury ridden.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue. The Mets pitching staff, but the bats haven't put it together. We thought coming into the year, the Mets offense was goated. We thought that Mets
the other way
carried the team. Turned out to be the complete opposite, and now the pitching's injured, so now we don't know what's going on. They're sticking around 500 over the past like 10 games or so, but pitching's not there, right? DeGrom's not playing. Hopefully he comes back soon. Hopefully Carrasco, right? Mets are talking about using him this weekend.
Yeah, can't forget about him. He have a very strong 5-man rotation. I think
If this rotation was healthy, it's the best right now, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't question it, can you? I mean, what, is Taijuan Walker our fifth starter? I'm being serious. Like,
think about it. At full strength, you have DeGrom, Stroman, Carrasco. Well, Syndergaard. Oh yeah. Is he your sixth starter?
Is he even a starter?
Like
He's a bullpen guy at this point. Like, I'm being serious. Like, you have to argue that some of these guys, their rotation could be insane.
I see no reason why, if they were to get Chris Bryant, I think they could come out of the National League. I think that's the kind of impact player that they need.
I could see Chris Bryant being. I mean, if the Mets sign him also long term, the Mets window increases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you don't have to worry about if pitching not holding up as much if you have a surefire offense. Plus, the Mets, the one issue with Chris Bryant though, all of the Mets top prospects are basically third basemen on the hitting side, except for Alvarez.
Yeah, they have to clear that out.
But some of those will go in that trade, right?
Exactly. So it'd be a good thing.
And if you don't trade Brett Baty, which I don't think he belongs in a Chris Bryant trade, right? Ideally, you save him for someone like Max Scherzer.
Nah, it's not happening.
No, Mets will do it both in the same year. We'll sign both.
But that's like kind of my point. Is it even worth haggling over those third baseman prospects? Like, what's the point? You should bring Chris Bryant in.
Getting a long-term third baseman who's already proven himself at the big league level.
Exactly. And like you said, like let's say that they trade one, Baty, and then let's say worst case scenario, Chris Bryant doesn't re-sign, right? Yeah. You still have JD Davis that you can put at third base. That's worst case scenario, and at least you went for it, you tried.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Bryant, they should at least make the NLCS. I don't think it's even worth haggling over which prospects to include. As long as it's not Francisco Alvarez, I think they should be willing to include anyone.
Well,
think
the
this-
reason
this
why
is
you
the time.
can't include Alvarez is because once
Yeah.
McCann leaves, you're assuming that Alvarez is your everyday catcher.
Yeah, I wouldn't move him.
Yeah, Alvarez is
Not
He's
for
a-
a rental.
he's the one prospect that has a near untouchable. Unless you give a 1-for-1,
Unless it's a superstar who's under control.
a superstar under team
Which-
control,
And
one
that's-
for
no
one.
one's available.
No one's giving that though.
Yes, that's not available right now. So
Like, the
unless
only player in
Trey
all of
Turner.
baseball who's completely untouchable is Mike Trout. But aside from that,
yeah,
I mean, everyone
know-
is relatively. I mean, if some team wanted to give, let's say here, Scherzer was willing to sign before he trade, right? They're gonna give a sign and trade, and they wanted to give him 1-for-1 for Alvarez. I might still have to think about that for a second. Some people would still think about that. You still have to question for a second. Wait a second. What am I giving up?
Mhm.
But you still might have to say, hey, big league player, established, right? There's no
Yeah.
risk of. There is a risk of a big league player falling
But
apart.
it's smaller,
It's
lot
smaller
smaller.
than a minor leaguer who's still in single A
of course.
developing. I mean, different.
Well, I think overall that the Mets are in a pretty good spot going to the deadline. They're in first place.
Yeah,
I think
the Rich Hill trade helped.
that's going to help the pitching. I think they're in a good spot.
Basically gave them the game. It pretty much gave them a win. I mean, he threw 49 pitches through 5 innings before collapsing a little bit, but he probably shouldn't have got out from their inning anyway.
I think Mets need to make sure that they don't, rest on their laurels. And, they need to, just because they're in first place, they still need to improve if they want to truly be contenders and go for that World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Braves are going to challenge the Mets. The Phillies are really the only challenge right now. I mean, this picture says it all about what I think about the Braves right now. I can't see the Braves. I mean, without Acuna, they're not competing with the Mets.
They're
It's
not.
not happening right now. They might be able to pass Philly. That I could see if Philly struggles, right? But Philly has a very good offense. But I can't see Philly really being a great team either. I mean, the NL East is in a weird spot because you would think the Mets would have run away with it by now.
Yeah, it is really weird, right?
Like the Mets have struggled just more than you thought, and they struggled just enough to keep it close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Miami sucks right this year. I mean, they have potential every year, right? Miami always has something cooking that you think could work. But Miami, I mean, since they traded away everybody during the ownership change and all that,
Yeah,
they've had some good flashes of prospects coming up and doing well. Last year was pretty good for them. Miami has not come close, and they probably won't come close anytime soon.
Yeah, that's not someone that's a competitor to the Mets.
The Braves could be a threat any year if they're healthy.
Yeah, that'll be one next year, I think.
I think the Mets Braves is a safer bet than Mets Phillies going forward.
Mhm.
Nationals, if they're selling,
Yeah,
no.
I think that they're going to trend downward.
I think
Yeah,
Scherzer was their face right now
Yeah,
after Harper left. So that's kind of it. I mean, the Mets should have run away with this division though, and they haven't.
yeah. I think
It's a bit
especially you have to consider if they trade for someone like Chris Bryant, the mental aspect that's going to provide a boost to all the guys. That the front office believes in them and that they can make a push.
Yeah, but what does it do to someone like JD Davis, who's been one of their better hitters?
I think he has to understand that they're trying to make the team better. It's no insult to him.
Now, what if you shift him out to left field, but then Dom Smith has to be benched, right? Because the
Yeah.
issue with Dom Smith is that you can't play him at first base because you have Alonso.
Yeah, it's a logjam. I mean, it's not the worst problem in the world.
No, I mean, worst case scenario, you got to trade. People have been saying trade Dominic Smith for a long time now, right?
I don't
To
think they
Pete,
should.
pretty much. But Mets are in a position where some of these trades create a logjam, obviously. It's a weird spot, maybe trading for a reliever to a starter and seeing the effects. If you could trade it a bit early, make the trades a bit earlier, maybe even see a start or two, maybe even see bullpen appearances too, see how that affects the team quickly. I know it's going to be a really small sample size, but you gotta try stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe getting Carrasco back helps, right? Having the bullpen work one less bullpen game, right? Because yesterday, game they won was a bullpen game. Only one guy pitched more than one inning. That can't happen. I guess it's a 7-inning game. That's still 7 innings that your bullpen uses. And then you have to play another game the next day. Right? Your bullpen's getting taxed.
Yeah, you don't want that.
You wonder why guys like Diaz, who are going out 3-4 times in a row at times, are getting crushed. The Yankees probably have the same issue.
Mm-hmm. Especially in previous years.
I think everyone kind of has that issue, though, relatively. That's
a little bit.
Every single team at some point in the season will have an issue with their bullpen.
Yeah, that's expected. It's so volatile.
Yeah. Maybe you might have one guy who's like a guarantee, like a closer 1 year, right? Just playing outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much it. A stable bullpen, especially in the playoffs, matters. If you're running a 3-man rotation in the playoffs, right, which some teams have done, that's what the Mets could do, right? Think about it. 3-man rotation of DeGrom, Walker, and Stroman, because you're assuming DeGrom's going to be back by then.
I hope so. If not, then you have other problems.
That's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
If DeGrom's not back, if DeGrom doesn't come back, the Mets might actually be in trouble for the playoffs.
I think without DeGrom, they're not going. There'll be a first-round exit.
Yeah,
they could lose in the division series without him, honestly.
Yeah.
Or maybe they don't even. Maybe they somehow slip and someone catches them in the NL East. If DeGrom doesn't pitch at all for the rest of the year somehow, which that's not going to happen. Or we don't know, but it's unlikely.
Well, you got to think about it. He's also somehow, even with all the starts he missed, he's still a Cy Young favorite.
Yeah, he's just so good in those starts.
When he's healthy, he is by far the best pitcher on the planet. Like, there's no debate. His bad starts are some guys' good starts.
Yeah.
Like, remember when he gave up 3 runs against the Braves?
Yeah, that was bad.
And then he pitched 7 innings. That's the thing. Like, you think he had a bad start, but some guys, like if Matt Harvey did that, right, he'd be so happy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just a crazy situation right now for the Mets. Yeah. But
overall, you got to be happy with it.
You can't be, especially with what some past Mets teams have failed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, 2015 and 16 Mets, right, were playoff teams. And the 16 Mets were a disappointment.
Yeah.
With Connor Gillespie hitting that home run off Familia.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. That was, I remember staying up to watch that game because I thought I was staying up for that because compared to, that was such a sad game to watch. But
I think you got a lot to look forward to.
2017 was a disaster. 2018 had some hope. 2019 had some hope. 2020 collapsed, right? We thought, we got next year. It's a short season. This year,
yes, now
the team has to make it at least, right? Maybe you don't win it, but you have to make
it. Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Even though you're injury plagued, it's your first year, new ownership. You have to make it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't risk not making it. Especially you have to win the division.
You got to start there.
Yeah, you're not making the wild cards. So you win the division this year. That's your first NL East title since 2015, right? You win a few more, you start becoming a good, consistent playoff team with the Dodgers, right? You win the World Series or 2, you're a modern baseball team.
Mm-hmm. That's the goal.
That's the goal. Start winning in a modern era, right? And then hopefully, then you can say, hey, we're winning. We're a good baseball team. Our bad years are some teams' good years.
Yep.
That's the goal. Dodgers. That's pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have to compare the Yankees to the Dodgers, right? Yankees have more past success, for example, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dodgers right now, they've been the most consistent team in baseball, right? Like every year they've been in the playoffs or up there in contention. Yankees haven't had that. No other team has had that, pretty much. What other team has been consistently up there? No one. That's the goal, to become the Dodgers, pretty much.
Yeah.
Except you have to win a few more World Series, and they did. Because they haven't
before you
been-
get there.
Yeah.
But hey, they're in a good spot right now. You know.
The Mets, I mean, you could argue if they were healthy, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd just be saying, great team, they're winning.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point.
But since they're not healthy, they have to win the division this year because it sends a little statement there. We won pretty much at our worst. So that's a goal for the Mets. The Braves' goal is to get healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yankees' goal is
To get back on track.
figure out what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's more the Yankees' goal. Figure out what you're doing. Because
Good summary.
they gave the outward appearance of I'm not selling. But a lot of fans think maybe you should sell. Because if the Yankees have an improved prospect pool, right, that lets them do other things in the future. It doesn't necessarily mean you got to wait for those prospects to develop. You could trade those guys for a young player, controllable, right? Uncontrollable player.
Yeah.
So teams got a lot of work to do. Every team has a lot of work to do.
Sure. Yep.
So you got to argue Mets' time is now. The Yankees are trying to secure their window, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's it. That's it.
Got it.
All right. Let's get into hockey. So Gaudreau signing with the Rangers. Solid.
Not
Depends
really.
on your discussion about the price point.
Well, I think they had to sign him, right? You trade a pick for someone
Mm-hmm.
who's a UFA, unless the guy's like
Mm-hmm.
great player, where you have to trade a pick to get a chance to sign him. You have to argue that you traded a 7th-round pick for signing or early signing rights.
Mm-hmm. They put
You
a lot of
want
pressure
to
on
sign him
themselves.
before this period.
Mm-hmm.
So Keith,
I still don't get the contract. The value is okay. It's the term for me. And I want to compare him to when Matt Martin was with the Leafs. Because that contract that Matt Martin had, a lot of people say it was an overpayment. The term wasn't too bad, but he was making similar in salary. Here's the difference, though, in the two situations. The Leafs at that time weren't really paying anyone. Matthews was still coming up. Marner was still coming up. Nylander, I think, was a year away or 2 years away from his contract. And they had Brown and Hyman still coming up, too. Now, with that being said, the Rangers are paying Panarin. You're paying
Trouba.
True.
and sure, you have Lafreniere and Capo to, I guess, protect. But you're trying to tell me you need to protect those guys for the next 6 years on that cap hit. Because look what they did with Martin. Look what the Leafs did with Martin. They took him, and as soon as Matthews needed his first contract, and as soon as Marner needed his contract, he was gone. They didn't even worry about paying him anymore. They timed it up perfectly. It was set up to be that way. And I think the Rangers have just dug themselves a hole, especially if Lafreniere does produce this year or Capo does produce this year and they want a big contract. Well, you're kind of stuck.
Well, also, Gaudreau is 28. How old was Martin when he signed that deal? Just curious. I mean, that type of game's a bit different than a scoring threat, but the injury risk is certainly high.
Yeah, I think his play style is probably not going to age as well because he's so physical. I think they're definitely going to have to buy him out. He's a buyout candidate towards the end of his contract, for sure. I think they made this deal with the now in mind. I think James Dolan, I think he kind of rushed things a little bit. This is my opinion. He finally intervened.
He did fire his GM.
Yeah.
He is rushing
over this exact issue, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. They wanted the toughness. Like I said last time, the Islanders games, they got bullied and they wanted that kind of tough guy. And they also want that experience, that Stanley Cup experience that they think Gaudreau can provide, being on the Lightning.
Well, I don't think he was fired because they didn't have enough toughness. Dolan wants to win now, and they don't have the pieces to win now. That's the problem. They're still a team.
They go out there and sign Gabriel Landeskog suddenly, right? They're not going to get even adding a player like that.
Having him, you're still
there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So goaltending is. I think we can agree that Chase Sturking is a good goaltender.
Mm-hmm. He was a little
Okay.
uneven last year, but yeah, we can agree. He'll be better for sure.
He'll be fine in the
He's
playoffs.
one of those because if you notice, there's three good Russian goalies in the East right now. Young Russian goalies. You got Sorokin and Samson.
Yeah.
Those are three guys, all three of which could lead the division for a while. Like this division can have good goalies, and if the Rangers can build around it, I mean, it could work. I'm not
The
saying
defense is starting to get better.
The Rangers have pieces. It's not like they're starting from the
Yeah.
Sabres' point of view.
Defensively, there's questions.
That might be more of a coaching thing too, though. You could argue.
Could be.
Yeah.
We got a new coach coming in.
I mean, the Islanders before Trotz, right? Adding him made a huge difference. You have to think that a coach like Trotz to a Rangers offensive system, the Rangers might not lose a lot of offense. They're going to lose some, but they won't lose as much as the Islanders did during that same transition.
I mean, they're still, and I think the Rangers are still bottom six questions though too.
I mean, the Islanders never had that bottom six question, really. Their question was more of how do we arrange the top two lines to produce offense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Rangers, they're probably not done adding to the bottom six. Like you said, there are some question marks right now. I think they're probably going to add in the coming days and weeks of free agency.
I mean, it's possible. I don't see why they can't really make the playoffs as long as everyone plays well and stays healthy. But I don't see a cup push anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should be competing for the playoffs for sure. But it's going to take a few steps to get to the cup, like you said.
Is Matt Martin's contract with the Islanders the current one, 4 years, $6 million? Is that a better estimate of what the Rangers should be looking to give to players like Gaudreau?
I don't think so. Not in the Rangers situation. Because at least the Islanders, although it's coming soon, they're not really paying anyone extremely well, extremely high amounts. Now, you want to talk about Pelech's contract, and I think Barzal is going to be making more than $7 million by the time his deal's up.
He's making. He made 3 the first year. He's making 7 this coming year.
Yeah.
10 the following, and then he's still on RFA, which is extremely beneficial. That was probably the most friendly deal you could get him on.
You said how much Matt Martin was making per year?
4 years, $6 million is a current contract he just signed in January.
Yeah, making 1.5. That's not a bad deal though.
It's not. And he's still leading the league in hits almost like every year with that fourth line. If they keep that fourth line intact with Cizikas, it's basically what the Rangers should aim to emulate. Because having a solid fourth line that even when they don't produce, they add to your game, that's what they need. I mean, the question of how the Rangers are going to fill in those pieces, you're going to give up something to fill in those pieces, whether it be cap space or actual players, which I don't think making trades for guys like that, unless you have to mid-season, is the type of thing the Rangers look for. They should look to sign whatever guys they could to fill in those roles, and maybe even drafting guys that look like they could fill in those roles, because a guy like Martin will not require as much development time as a first-line winger.
All right. How do we feel about Blackwell being taken in the expansion draft?
I think it was expected.
I mean, pretty expected, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not heartbroken about it. It's all right. I think he can be replaced. What do you think, Alessio?
Well, unless you're losing a first or second line player that's like guaranteed to be your guy moving forward, unless you're losing a guy that you can't, there's certain good players you can't replace, right? Like first line centers, right? Guys like that, you can't replace them easily. And even if you could replace them, you're replacing them, but you're changing the system. If you're losing a guy who's a free agency level replacement, you could find probably. it's not really that big of a loss.
I agree. Let's talk about the Buchnevich trade. What do you guys think about that from the Rangers' perspective?
I mean, he produced for them. He certainly produced for them. I mean, that's the loss. It's
Yeah,
not-
I think he showed a lot of growth from where he came into the NHL to where he is now. They used to be called soft and everything, but he really proved himself. He was a key part of the team, not just as a player, but also as a teammate. He was pretty beloved in the locker room.
I mean,
So,
48 points in 54 games.
Yeah, he produced.
Obviously, pretty good numbers for a guy who's playing normally second line minutes. And this goes back into the same situation we were talking about before. If the Rangers want to make a playoff push, this is the guy you need to keep. This guy who's going to produce for you on the second line. Now, how he fits in with St. Louis, we'll have to see.
Well, unless St. Louis is looking to trade Tarasenko, right?
That's a possibility.
And then keep him around to kind of fill in that offensive void they're going to lose. I mean, Tarasenko has a very small list of teams that he wants to go to. That's problematic in of itself because all the teams he named have cap issues now, except for the Isles. Maybe, but I don't know if. I mean, getting a sniper coming off of shoulder issues,
Oh, multiple
shoulder issues, yeah, that held him back for a while, that were apparently mishandled.
Well, yeah, obviously. I think he played like 2 or 3 games and he got hurt again.
Yeah, it's almost like the Mike Soroka.
Yeah. Well, at least he played again.
Yeah, at least he played.
At least he was on the ice for a little bit. But man, the trade. I don't know.
I feel
Even
like
if they trade for someone like Jack Eichel right away,
yeah, that's the thing.
No.
I agree with you, Keith. You said, that's not the player they should be trying to trade away right now. He's someone who can produce right now in the playoff push. Initially, I thought it was going to be some kind of like precursor to a Jack Eichel trade, to free up some, money. But then that didn't happen, so I'm questioning it a lot. I think now I'm kind of thinking it's a bad move.
And here's the thing: the guy they traded him for, he's only a year younger. So it's not like you're getting a prospect by any means. So Buchnevich 26, Blas, I believe it's pronounced, is only 25.
what was his production?
Last year, 36 games, 15 points. He was 8 goals, 7 assists.
Trouble.
They're not really gaining anything there.
You got a second for next year. You didn't even get.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a second round pick. Like, look at the return of some players that got traded on draft day. They couldn't even get a first for him. So that is, like you said, it's not even this year.
I'm gonna be honest. I think he's more valuable than what Devon Tays was when the Islanders traded him away, which was also a very questionable move, but they kind of had to do. The difference is the Isles had to do it.
Yeah.
And that those 2 seconds led them to trade Andrew Ladd. Right? I mean, in the long term, that trade worked out because the Islanders filled in that defensive slot with Noah Dobson, which works out perfectly because Noah Dobson needed a spot anyway. But the Rangers don't really have anyone. They don't have a winger that's knocking on Buchnevich's door, do they? No. Who's competing for minutes on that team? That's not on the roster.
They kind of self-imposed this cap crunch in a way, especially like with the signing of Gaudreau.
Overpaying.
That's not helping.
They didn't really overpay Panarin.
No,
but that was a good deal.
Though.
You kind of had to do that, especially I think I remember the Islanders offering more money, and he chose the Rangers, which is, I mean, from a player's perspective, bad choice, but from a team perspective, the Rangers got really lucky there because if they don't have Panarin, they might even be thinking we have nothing. Like, I'm being serious. Like, Panarin, he's such a difference maker on that team that all their forwards look better around him.
Sure. Strong. That's center. That's the pairing right there. He kind of makes them.
Ryan Strome coming up with the Islanders, he basically had one good year and fell off a cliff. And everyone's like, what's happened to this guy? And then he went to the Rangers.
Panarin's made him. He's made him pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I think also playing better minutes, right? When you move a guy to top level minutes, he kind of improves a bit naturally, playing more,
Yeah.
especially if he's a consistent hockey player. Moving a guy from the third line up to the first, for example, that's going to make a big
Yeah.
difference any day. I think the Rangers have work to do, clearly.
Mhm.
But, I mean, the Buchnevich trade doesn't really kill you. It's not like a franchise-changing decision on its own.
It's not, but for the goal you set out, it does. It kills your goal.
Yeah, it's not helping the goal exactly. It's not helping this year, this upcoming year, the playoff push.
I don't even know if the Gaudreau signing helps the
Where
long term.
Because all it's getting you is a guy who has produced less, and a second round pick for next year.
It was basically just to get out of paying him going forward.
Yeah, paying him what? They could afford to pay him.
They felt that $5.5 million annually they couldn't do. That's what I've heard.
They could have given him.
Thank you, Trouba and Igloo.
Yeah,
You're paying
pretty
Trouba.
much. Like I said, it's self-imposed. They created this situation.
If you're willing to still pay Trouba, I think you're willing to pay him. I'm just saying. I mean, the other issue I could see with the Rangers is if they don't fill in that third and fourth line, and then they realize, oh, let's just sell off a few more pieces, right? We'll trade for Eichel now, right? That could be scary too.
I don't see an Eichel trade though.
What if Eichel isn't healthy? I'm just saying. What if he doesn't come back the same?
All right, yeah, that's a question, right? Because that's a pretty bad neck injury he had.
Yeah, that's a bad injury to get, especially for a first line center. I mean, you want him to come back as your first line center, right? You think he's a franchise player.
It still doesn't help your depth problems though. And that's championships.
I mean, he'll never be as bad as Jeff Skinner, but
that's just another story for a different day. Jeff Skinner, how bad he is now.
You know, Jeff Skinner might come back and play great, right? You never know. But I feel like probably not. But
is there a potential, while we're talking about Jeff Skinner, that he's part of that trade package to get a bad contract out of there? I mean, I know Buffalo obviously has a lot of money to rebuild, but it's still, is it a possibility?
What if you include him with Eichel? You have to remove the contract, right? What if you include him with Eichel?
It's gonna be a team with a lot of salary to take him on though.
Yeah.
Retain it.
Could the Rangers make the move to do it? Could trading Trouba away make room for that?
That's possible, but I think Buchnevich was a big piece of that deal though.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think that's part of the cost, right? I mean, the second round pick, in theory, if they end up amassing picks, that's the type of move you use it for.
Yeah.
But even then, amassing picks is not going to help you win now. Because, especially when a second round pick, you have to imagine they're not coming up at 18 years old. I mean, most first round guys are going to come up at 18 anyway.
They're coming up at like 22.
22, 23.
Yeah.
So you still have to wait.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on here. Either embrace the rebuild and be patient and let it come over time, or sell off all your futures and win now. And you're going to have a short window, and you're probably not going to win anything. But that's why you have to stop letting James Dolan give orders.
And he's giving orders like he's running the Knicks. This isn't a sport where you can just build a team by signing 3 or 4 guys.
Well, of course, the roster size are different. The total shared play time is going to be different. There's many different dynamics in the sports.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into Isles hockey. So they lost Jordan Eberle. That's not good. And he might not be as replaceable as people are saying. Because everyone's thinking that he is just, you could replace him with Gabriel Landeskog, or you could replace him with Oliver Wahlstrom, right? But he was pretty much one of the perfect wingers for a guy like Matt Barzal. I mean, he plays like what you want from someone with Matt Barzal. He gets into the slot, he gets to the dirty areas, and he just sets up. And that's what you kind of need from a winger with Matt Barzal. I mean, look at Anders Lee. He plays a very similar game, except he's in the net, in front of the net a bit more. That's really the difference. The wingers are pretty similar, have been pretty similar around Barzal for a while. Basically just been Lee or Eberle, a little bit of Bailey. You could see Beauvillier slotting in maybe, but Beauvillier is very streaky, so at times he has 20 game stretches where Beauvillier is a 70-point player, and then he has 20 game stretches where he's a 10-point player, which is pretty accurate. Losing Eberle, though, I can't even see Gabriel Landeskog replacing him evenly because he's coming from an offensive power in the Avalanche, and leaving that team to come to the Isles is not. You're losing offense there. So you would have to question if Wahlstrom's really your only internal option. So then you're basically just bumping up a player from a good line, but the third line was working, to fill in a void. And then you have another void then. Who's going to fill in that third line? So that's overall not a good mix of moves, but they kind of have to do it. I mean, let's be honest. You're losing one of Bailey or Eberle, right? In that situation. Maybe Bellows. We could have argued Bellows could have gone. There was talks about a trade to get him to take Ken Appleby.
Which was weird because there were no trades.
Nothing.
No draft pick exchanges. And that's why I actually kind of felt pretty weird because Vegas had a good amount of those. And
Vegas had a few, yeah.
And considering the guys that Seattle was taking, I thought for sure. Like when I saw like Quenneville, for example, I was like, oh, Hawks gave up a first without a doubt. They didn't. I was surprised. Like I was really surprised Seattle did not take too many picks or any picks at all.
I mean, Hawks got Seth Jones.
And
they're good. You know what's hilarious? Adam Pelech is asking for $7 million, but Seth Jones got $9.5.
Pelech deserves it.
Pelech deserves $7 million. Even if he eats up a little more cap than you expect, I feel like you should give it to him. Like, I get it might make sure you can't re-sign one player maybe or something like that. But what, a $1 million, $2 million difference? From you're already giving him at least $5 million. You know that. Adam Pelech is getting at a minimum $5 million. He's probably going to get more than Ryan Pulock. There's a chance of that.
Well, I think Pulock's more replaceable in a sense.
Yeah. Well, it's harder to get a top-tier defensive defenseman nowadays.
Yeah, rather than an offensive or two-way guy.
Well, almost every defenseman that you can find. It's easy to replace offense. It's hard to replace high-level defensive guys. I mean, especially at the...
Because it's a totally different skill set.
Yeah.
Totally different mentality.
Plus, Pelech, I mean, he's not bad offensively. He's solid. I mean, he plays efficient hockey. And that's hard to find, a guy who can consistently play efficient hockey. And his value really shows up in the playoffs. I mean, that's where it kind of is. His value in the playoffs is where you can tell he's a difference maker. He shuts down. Remember him against Pittsburgh?
Oh, yeah. 2 times.
2 times, yeah. He completely shuts down that offense.
The only person I've seen do anything like that, and this is going to make some people laugh, was Mark Methot when they were playing Ottawa.
Yeah, it's true.
Crosby couldn't score against Methot. It was crazy.
Yeah.
No one knew what to do.
Basically, that's what, I mean, very few defensemen could even come close to that. Maybe for a game here and there, a defenseman could shut down offense. But over the course of a whole series or even a playoff run, I mean, Tampa's the exception. But for the most part, the Isles have depended on taking out other teams' top scorers.
But did Tampa really score, though?
No, they had a blowout game here and there, and that was it. Outside of that, they've been playing. They've barely won solid hockey style.
Because I was gonna say, like, against Tampa, they didn't give up too many goals. It was just a lack of scoring.
Well, lack of Anders Lee.
That too.
That could be argued that having Anders Lee in the lineup and Wallstrom, right? Remember, Wallstrom was basically out. That's not, you're losing quarter of your goals because Eberle's playing less effective, right? Nelson's playing less effective. So
I think losing Lee was a lot worse than losing Wallstrom, though.
Yeah. You could argue that's a quarter of your goals right there. Because effectiveness of other players combined with not actually having the guys who would score. And their replacement level players were not. I mean, Leo Komarov, right? He's a solid hockey player, but he's not going to score. And they had him on the first line. So, I mean, it was a tough situation. Adam Pelech, though, he did kind of shut down the first line. Because if you notice, a lot of the scoring came from the second, third, and third line, pretty much. Like Yanni Gourde went off. Right? I mean, Yanni Gourde, he's gone too now from Tampa, which is something to watch. But if the Isles, if they bring up someone like, say, Samuel Bolduc soon to take Nick Leddy's spot, I would think shifting Dobson up and putting Samuel Bolduc in the Dobson slot on the third pair, that probably improves the Islanders' offensive production from a defensive group. But unless Pelech continues to be insane, which he probably will, but you never know, you could see a slight defensive downgrade there.
Possible.
Yeah, it is possible.
So what do you think about the Islanders picking up Ratty in second round?
It's a safer pick than most people would think because he was supposed to be a top 10 pick. Coming into the year, he was a top 10, even top 5 pick. And he had a horrible year. But he was playing third line minutes because in that league, it's a very defensive league, probably the league that places the most emphasis on defense out of any league. And so he basically is coming from an Isles system as is, right? Makes sense to pick him up. So then you bring him over, and he scores 4 goals that same day in the showcase. I mean, his talent's there. You just have to question playing third line minutes and then not producing as much as you expected. Fine. You could kind of argue that playing less time in a very defensive system against a very defensive league, that could combine for them. And then, but the tools are there. So that's kind of what the Isles are probably looking at.
And there was really no risk in the pick either, because even if this is a guy who takes, so he's, 23, let's say, to come up, I mean, he's still going to be solid, and you're not wasting a pick. This could just be more of a prospective pick.
Plus, the Islanders wouldn't really need him right now anyway,
Exactly.
Right? Compared to what the needs they have to fill, they have no real need for a third line winger unless they move Wallstrom up to the first. Even then, they kind of have enough options internally to fill the voids. I mean, even worst case scenario, this guy doesn't come up until like 24, 25. But he might be there sooner because he's playing in a really tough league as is. Like, it's not the KHL, but it's still a professional league. And that's the one advantage that guys like that have over CHL prospects. All right, so it's kind of a sad thing to talk about, but the sports world has lost a legend. So this guy, I mean, amazing hockey player, good at baseball, amazing at every sport pretty much. He Just very athletic guy overall. Showed extreme potential. Dominated every level he played at. It's one of the toughest losses that the sports community has ever faced. And I feel really bad that we won't be seeing him play for the New York Islanders one day or even for the Mets. I mean, he could have played for anyone he wanted to.
He's just that good.
It's just that good.
Tip the cap. Moment of silence.
This is just, I don't know. This is such a tough segment to do. It's hard to talk about how great of a player he was. He was more than just a player. I mean, he did everything perfectly.
He's a friend.
Keith, I mean, you have a lot to say about him, right?
I have a lot to say about him. He was a great friend of mine. Helped me through a lot. He was a pretty young guy, so it was really hard when I got the news about him. But just remember sitting down with him and just playing a lot of sports with him, just teaching him everything he knew. And there was times where I was like, wow, I'm teaching this guy and he's doing things better than I'm doing. And just to see that and the look on his face.
It would have helped you so much in college hockey, right?
You know,
He would have carried you in college hockey.
he probably would have taken my spot. His
Yeah.
form was just tremendous.
Yeah. He would have been an ex-athletic. Yeah.
I like went to his school for defense.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So by now you've seen the pictures and you know what we are talking about. I don't know. This is such a crazy loss to the sports community.
Very unexpected.
The greatest rally animal to ever exist. The Braves should use him. The Braves would make the playoffs if they knew about him.
They would. If he played for them,
If
they
he
wouldn't
played
need
for them.
him. They wouldn't need him. When he was so fast, his speed,
Yeah.
he could have played all the positions.
Mhm.
Never make an error.
It's a
Yeah.
tough time.
I even see him playing goalie. He's like the best goalie to ever live too. I mean, he could carry any team in any sport. He could have won every Olympic event. He might not have liked swimming though that much.
He was a decent swimmer.
Decent swimmer. If he
Sure.
wanted to, he could have won it.
Short distance, not long distance.
Yeah.
Would have beat Usain Bolt in the race, though, no doubt.
All right. So now that you all know about this, just start a GoFundMe. I'm only kidding. Just such a tough loss for our podcast, for the world, and for God. There's no coming back from this.
No.
Very well said.
He could have done an entire podcast on his own, 6 hours, and it would have been amazing.
Sad
It would have gotten more. It would have gotten more views than we'll ever get.
Probably looked at the camera a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe stop, go out of view, and come back in like 10 minutes later. But anyway, that's it for Ray's memory. Ray out.